Hello, Sacred Studios here, and if I was to ask all of you, what is your most annoying Super Smash Bros. Character to fight against? For my money, I'd go Ness, and then second would be Zelda, but third place would definitely go to the Ice Climbers. These guys have always infamously been really annoying to fight against. That being said, I decided to make an action figure of Popo. And the reason I made an action figure is actually not because Popo is going to be my series at all. If you guys remember, in episode 1, I used this really bad looking Kamek custom that I made. It barely resembles Kamek. It looks really bad. But I mean, that was one of my first customs I've ever made. But even then, yikes. I mean, that's a really bad figure. And when I made episode 1, the official World of Nintendo Kamek wasn't out yet, so I just made it custom and it looks really, really bad. Cut to today, which I still have that old Kamek figure and it's starting to fall apart because I didn't mix the epoxy correctly. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to make another figure out of this because if I just leave it be, it's just gonna make a mess everywhere. So I decided to take it apart and see what I can make out of this Kamek. Now, the base I used back then was the World of Nintendo Mario 4-inch. I used that Mario pretty much for a lot of customs back then, just because Mario is about 4 inches, and I kind of based my customs based off height, not like actual shape. And unfortunately, when I made the custom, I ended up throwing out a bunch of pieces to the original base figure. For example, I ripped off Mario's gloves. I put a layer of epoxy around his body, and that was really hard to get off. And you could really see how bad that looks. So I ended up having to scrape all the paint off, and what I was left with was a World of Nintendo Mario with no head and no hands because I got rid of the gloves. And there's not really too much I can make with that. I was thinking like, oh, I can make a custom out of this, but really, who could I make? They would have to be the same height or shorter than Mario. They would have to have a completely different head than Mario, and they can't have the same gloves as Mario. So, with those options, really the only thing I could think of would be to make Popo from the Ice Climbers. So yeah, first what I did was I printed Popo's head, which that was the easiest part. I just got his model from Smash Bros. Brawl. The Smash Ultimate model was giving me some troubles. I know what the issue was now, but I just used the Brawl model, which is okay because it pretty much looks the same. Um, and yeah, so I printed that out, and then after that, I had to sculpt like a cone shape around the World of Nintendo Mario base, so it resembles like a puffy coat and not just like just regular Mario. And on top of that, I decided to shorten the legs. So next up, I 3D printed the little mittens he has as well as his boots. Now, I actually used the Smash Ultimate model for the mittens and the boots because those parts printed fine without any issues. The last thing is the little fur that he has, like around the rings around his mittens and around his coat. I used the same strategy I used with my Cynthia figure a few videos ago, in which I just used a hot glue gun and just circled around it until it made like a circle shape. And then I repeated the same thing like around the coat. And I think it turned out really good. It resembles like a fuzzy coat sort of material. And after I done that, I just painted it white. And that was it regarding the body. The little fuzzy effects I think really adds to the character, so I'm really glad I did it that way instead of just sculpting it out of just regular epoxy, because if I did it that way it would just look like regular clay and it wouldn't stand out as much. So lastly, Popo's face was pretty simple. I just used a regular matte finish for the skin and gloss for the hair, and yeah, his little rosy cheeks was just done by using the dry brush technique that I learned from doing Ridley, and that's Popo. Popo honestly wasn't that hard to make. The hard part was making Nana, and this is the reason why. So, after I made Popo, I realized something I should have realized before, which I was like, well, actually, I need to go back and make a Nana now because it's not just Ice Climber, you know, it's not just one of them. So I have to go back and make a Nana. Unfortunately, I didn't have another base figure laying around, so I had to order a brand new World of Nintendo Mario just so I can rip it apart and take off the gloves and take off the head. But at least this time I kept the parts instead of just throwing them out. The body again was the same technique. I just used like a pink paint instead of purplish blue. But the problem for me came with the face. Now, when I made Popo, I just looked up a picture of Popo and just painted him accordingly. But when I made Nana, I looked up a picture of Nana, and apparently in Smash Bros. Melee, Nana's eyes were closer together than they are now. It's like a really slight thing, which I wouldn't have noticed until, like, after I finished the figure, I looked back at Popo, in which I used his Smash Ultimate render, and his eyes were far apart, and Nana's eyes were really close together, and it really looked bad. So I had to go back and just redo her face entirely so her eyes look more like Popo's eyes. So yeah, the hard part about Nana wasn't just making Nana, it was making Nana look like the previous Popo I made. Also, regarding their gloves, the way the World of Nintendo Mario is built is that there's a peg on the gloves that you attach to the arm, and then that's kind of how you are able to rotate it. Problem with that is that I got rid of the gloves, so there's no peg. So the only way I could make them have like gloves that they can rotate and like replace easily is, so I got chopsticks, which seem to be my tried and true method when making anything jank when it comes to action figures. I just use chopsticks, but it worked really well. I just used chopsticks, I chiseled them down so it fits into the peg hole where the peg should be, and I just put the gloves inside the peg. And it actually worked a little better because now that it's just a piece of a chopstick instead of like a peg, that you can pretty easily replace them. But it's not like loose in there either, you know, they can move around, but you don't have to like use a hair dryer in order to heat up the peg in order to take it out like you usually have to do with World of Nintendo hands. That also gave me the ability to give them their hammer accessory. So the way I did this wasn't that I just made the hammer. I actually 3D printed a pair of hands that already have the hammer attached, so I don't have to worry about the hammer falling out of their hands or anything like that, because it's just one big piece that I just painted two separate colors, so it looks like two separate pieces. Unfortunately, that does mean that, like, for example, if I want the hammer to just be by itself, or I want to give the hammer to another character for some reason, I can't do that. But if I ever want to, I guess I can just 3D print the hammer by itself. But as it is, you know, the Ice Climbers, they don't like throw their hammer anyways, so having it like surgically attached to their hands really wasn't that bad. And yeah, the hammer accessory gives them like the cool like hammer look. And I also use the same dry brushing technique around the hammer, so it looks like that it's kind of worn. It gives it like a worn look to it, like they've been smashing things with it. So the last accessory I have are these little ice shard blocks, which I just got directly from their Smash Ultimate model. And again, I just painted it blue, and then I used dry brushing to give it like a cracked ice sort of look, and I think it turned out really good. And yeah, this is probably the first action figure in which I give them like this many accessories. Usually I give them one accessory, or I don't give them any accessories. But yeah, here are the Ice Climbers. They aren't going to show up in my series anytime soon. I just made them because I had a Mario laying around, and this was really the only thing I could think of that I could make with them. But yeah, again, their heads are entirely 3D printed, as well as their gloves and their shoes. And yeah, also fun fact, apparently Ice Climbers have cleats, but in the original game they did not. And when I originally made Popo, I didn't realize that, so I had to go back and paint the cleats. But yeah, here are the Ice Climbers, and yeah, I think they turned out really good. They're definitely the coolest action figures in my collection. You know, they're pretty chill. But yeah, sorry if I haven't been able to break the ice with these videos, but yeah. All right, with all that said, sacred out.